All right, let's bring in Tom O'Connor. He's a senior foreign policy writer over at Newsweek, and he joins me from New York. Tom, good to have you on the show. What did you make of the president's speech?
Well, I think that the president deserves some credit for sticking by his decision. Obviously, he acknowledged the fact that this played out in a much faster timeline than anticipated. I think it's interesting I think it would be interesting to get to know more about those intelligence reports, obviously, because yeah, I'm sure that it had been known and it had been made clear to the president that the Taliban would take over at some time. But as far as the estimates to how fast that took, there obviously was some sort of misunderstanding there. I think the Biden administration, no matter what, is going to have some difficulty in the short term, at least, especially communicating this and explaining to the American people why this was in the U.S.'s best interest. So, of course, that's because the U.S. has just become so accustomed to being in these forever wars, as both Biden and Trump before him put it. So I think that it's a shock to see the realities once you leave those wars, even if they were inevitable, even if this would happen no matter what. I think the Biden administration, or Biden himself, actually put it quite clear to say there was never going to be a better or worse time, essentially, for this to happen, and that's what we see.
Okay, I mean, looking at how this chaotic situation is unfolding, how do you think the U.S.'s relationship with the Taliban is going to be looking like?
Well, we should remember that the Taliban and the U.S. government have been doing much more talking than fighting lately, and this goes back a couple of years now, at least. Obviously, there have been instances where the U.S. has leveraged some military power against the Taliban, but they do have a de facto working relationship. I think that it's going to be difficult in the short term for the U.S. to immediately extend recognition, just because this was seen as sort of a blindside. But at the same time, I mean, with President Ghani, or former President perhaps Ghani, having left the country so rapidly, there is a power vacuum, and there's not a clear answer as to who is the legitimate representative of Afghanistan right now. We've still some shocking images of the Taliban walking through the presidential palace and face very little resistance. So I mean, it's about as peaceful as a walk-in as you could have. Now, of course, I say that noting there are reports about mass abuses being committed, but right now it's not quite clear exactly what's going on. There's also some criminal elements out there. It's going to be up to the Taliban, of course, to establish themselves as a legitimate security force in Kabul if they want to be taken seriously abroad.
Tom, here's something else that puzzles me. The president added in his speech that the U.S. sort of needs to face the threats of today and not yesterday's. One of the most important topics that's being talked about after the U.S. withdrawal is that the country will become, or has the potential to become, a breeding ground for terrorists. I mean, isn't that a threat for today?
Of course, and it's not just a threat for the U.S. It's an even more immediate threat for the countries in the region, in Central Asia, for China, for Iran, for Russia to an extent as well. And so this is something this is one of the first major tests the Taliban are going to face if they're going to go forward with this project of them becoming the leaders of Afghanistan. Of course, the first things first, I think, is ensuring the safety of personnel in the country. But I think secondly, and quite up there, is ensuring that they don't allow these transnational militant groups to operate. We know the Taliban has no love for ISIS, but there has been a relationship with Al-Qaeda, obviously, in the past, and there are other groups, separatist groups, that exist, especially on the Central Asian side of things. So there's going to certainly have to be a concerted effort from the Taliban, and noted by the international community. And I say that, again, beyond just the U.S., for them to take action there, or there will be consequences.
All right. Tom O'Connor from Newsweek, thank you very much for your analysis. I do appreciate it.